The sound of metal handcuffs clicking shut around Catherine's swollen wrists will haunt Daniel forever. There she stood, 9 months pregnant, her belly so big she could barely see her feet, tears streaming down her face as 2 police officers led her away from their home. Her water broke right there on their front porch, mixing with her tears as she looked back at Daniel with eyes full of hurt and disbelief. "Please, Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to me? To our baby?" Daniel watched from the doorway, his hands shaking as the woman who had loved him for 5 years was loaded into the back of a police car like a common criminal. All because of $100. $100 that would change everything forever. But where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. 6 hours earlier, Daniel Rodriguez had woken up in the best mood he'd had in weeks. The sun was shining through their bedroom window, and Catherine was still sleeping peacefully beside him, her hand resting on her round belly. Their daughter was due any day now, and Daniel felt like the luckiest man alive. "Good morning, beautiful," he whispered, kissing Catherine's forehead gently. Catherine smiled without opening her eyes. "Good morning, my love. The baby was kicking all night. I think she's as excited to meet us as we are to meet her." Daniel placed his hand on her belly and felt a little kick against his palm. "Hey there, little one. Daddy can't wait to hold you." They had been married for 3 years, together for 5, and Daniel had never been happier. Catherine worked as a teacher at the local elementary school until she went on maternity leave last month. Daniel owned a small auto repair shop that was doing well enough to support their growing family. "I need to go to the bank today and deposit yesterday's earnings," Daniel said, getting out of bed. "Mrs. Peterson paid in cash for her car repair, and I want to make sure it's safe." Catherine nodded, struggling to sit up with her big belly. "I'll make us breakfast. The doctor said walking is good for the baby, so maybe we can take a stroll after you get back from the bank." Daniel got dressed and went to his dresser where he kept his wallet. He pulled out the thick envelope of cash, exactly $400 from Mrs. Peterson's payment, plus $100 he had set aside for groceries that week, $500 total. He counted it twice to be sure. $500, he said to himself, then tucked it safely in his wallet. After a wonderful breakfast of pancakes and fresh fruit, Daniel kissed Catherine goodbye and headed to the bank. The drive was short, and he was humming his favorite song, thinking about how perfect life was about to become with their baby girl arriving soon. But when Daniel reached into his wallet at the bank counter, his heart stopped. "I'm sorry, sir. Did you need help?" the bank teller asked, noticing Daniel's confused expression. Daniel counted the money again, then again, and again. $400. Only $400. The $100 he had set aside for groceries was gone. No, 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 Daniel muttered, his hands shaking as he searched every pocket, every fold of his wallet. This can't be right. He drove home faster than he should have, his mind racing. Who could have taken the money? Only he and Catherine had access to their bedroom. Only Catherine had been home with him that morning. But Catherine would never steal from him. Would she? When Daniel burst through the front door, Catherine was sitting on the couch, folding tiny baby clothes and humming softly. "Daniel? You're back so soon. Did everything go okay at the bank?" she asked, looking up with a sweet smile. "Catherine," Daniel said, his voice tight with tension, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Catherine's smile faded when she saw the serious look on his face. "Of course, honey. What's wrong? Did you take money from my wallet this morning?" The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Catherine blinked in confusion. "What? No, Daniel, I didn't touch your wallet. Why would you ask me that?" "Because I had $500 this morning, and now I only have $400. $100 is missing, Catherine." Catherine struggled to stand up from the couch, her hand supporting her lower back. "Daniel, I promise you I didn't take any money. Maybe you miscounted?" Or maybe it fell out somewhere? But Daniel's mind was already going to dark places. His mother, Patricia, had been filling his head with doubts about Catherine for months. "Son," Patricia had said just last week, "you need to be careful. Some women change when they're pregnant. They get desperate, start thinking only about themselves and the baby. You work so hard for your money and now suddenly she's not working. Maybe she's taking money and hiding it from you." Daniel had defended Catherine then, but now, with the missing money, his mother's words echoed in his mind. "Catherine, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you take that money?" Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, how can you even think that? I'm your wife. I'm carrying your child. Why would I steal from you?" "Because you're not working anymore. Because maybe you wanted something and didn't want to ask me." "What could I possibly want that I would steal from my own husband for?" Catherine cried, her voice breaking. "Daniel, you're scaring me. This isn't like you." But Daniel was too angry to think clearly. The missing money, his mother's warnings, the stress of becoming a new father, it all crashed together in his mind. "I want you to empty your purse, right now." Catherine stared at him in shock. "You want me to? Daniel, you can't be serious." "Empty it, Catherine. If you have nothing to hide, then prove it." With shaking hands and tears streaming down her face, Catherine dumped her purse onto the coffee table. Lip balm, tissues, her phone, car keys, a few coins, and some receipts scattered across the surface. No money. Daniel felt a tiny bit of relief, but he wasn't satisfied. "What about your pockets?" "I'm wearing a maternity dress, Daniel. It doesn't have pockets," Catherine said, her voice hollow with hurt. "What about upstairs? Maybe you hid it somewhere." Catherine's face crumpled. "I can't believe you're doing this to me. I can't believe you think I'm a thief." But Daniel was beyond reason now. "If you didn't take it, then who did? The money was there this morning, and now it's gone. Only you and I were in the house." Just then, the phone rang. It was Patricia, Daniel's mother. "Daniel, sweetie, how are you? I was just thinking about you and Catherine." "Mom," Daniel said, his voice strained. "Something terrible has happened. Money is missing from my wallet, and Catherine claims she didn't take it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Oh, Daniel, I was afraid something like this might happen. I've seen it before, honey. Pregnant women sometimes do desperate things. The stress, the hormones, it changes them." Catherine could hear Patricia's voice through the phone, and she looked at Daniel with a mixture of hurt and anger. "Don't listen to her, Daniel. Your mother has never liked me, and you know it. She's been trying to turn you against me since the day we got married." But Daniel was too caught up in his anger and his mother's words to see the truth. "Mom, what should I do? I can't have a thief living in my house, especially not with our baby coming." "Daniel, no," Catherine whispered, backing away from him. "You're not thinking clearly. This is crazy." Patricia's voice was firm through the phone. "Son, you need to protect yourself and your assets. If she'll steal from you now, what will she do when the baby comes and you have even more expenses? You need to take action." Daniel looked at Catherine, who was now crying so hard she could barely stand. Her whole body was shaking, and she kept one hand protectively over her belly. "I'm calling the police," Daniel said suddenly. The words hit Catherine like a physical blow. "What did you just say?" "I said I'm calling the police. If you stole from me, you need to face the consequences." "Daniel, please," Catherine begged, falling to her knees despite her huge belly. "I'm 9 months pregnant with your daughter. I'm your wife. I love you. I would never ever steal from you. Please don't do this." But Daniel was already dialing 911, his mother's voice still encouraging him through the phone. 911, what's your emergency?" "I need to report a theft. My wife stole money from me." Catherine's scream of anguish filled the room. "Daniel, no, please!" 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived at their door. Officer Martinez and Officer Johnson had been cops for over 10 years each, and they had never felt more uncomfortable about an arrest. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Officer Martinez asked Daniel quietly. "Your wife is very pregnant. Are you absolutely certain she took this money?" "I'm positive," Daniel said, though his voice was starting to waver as he watched Catherine sobbing on the couch. "The money was there this morning, and now it's gone. Only she had access to it." Officer Johnson knelt down beside Catherine. "Ma'am, I'm very sorry, but we need to ask you to come with us. You have the right to remain silent." As the officer read Catherine her rights, she looked up at Daniel one last time. "Daniel, I love you. I have always loved you. I would never steal from you or anyone else. When you find that money, and you will find it, remember this moment. Remember that you chose to believe I was a criminal instead of believing in the woman who has loved you faithfully for 5 years." Catherine's water broke just as they reached the front door. The clear fluid mixed with her tears as she doubled over in pain. "The baby," she gasped. "The baby is coming." Officer Martinez radioed for an ambulance immediately. "We need medical assistance at 1247 Oak Street. Pregnant woman in labor." As they waited for the ambulance, Catherine had to lean against the police car, breathing heavily through her contractions. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching the woman he loved suffer because of his accusation. "Sir," Officer Johnson said to Daniel, "are you sure you want to press charges? This woman is about to give birth. Maybe you could wait, search your house more thoroughly." But Patricia was still on the phone, and her voice carried through the speaker. "Daniel, don't let them convince you to back down. Justice needs to be served." Daniel nodded to the officers. "I want to press charges." The ambulance arrived and rushed Catherine to the hospital, but she was still technically under arrest. A female police officer rode with her to the hospital while Officer Martinez stayed to get Daniel's official statement. As Daniel watched the ambulance drive away with his wife and unborn child inside, a terrible feeling began to grow in his stomach. What if he was wrong? But it was too late now. The wheels of justice were already in motion, and Daniel had just destroyed the most important relationship in his life over $100. Later that evening, while Catherine was giving birth to their daughter in a hospital room with a police officer standing guard outside, Daniel sat alone in their bedroom, staring at the spot where his wallet had been that morning. He decided to search the house one more time, just to be absolutely sure. He looked under the bed, in all the drawers, behind the dresser, in the bathroom, in the kitchen cabinets, everywhere he could think of. And then, as he was moving the couch to look behind it, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There, wedged between the couch cushions and the frame, was a folded piece of green paper. Daniel pulled it out with trembling hands and unfolded it. It was a $100 bill. His $100 bill. The money had fallen out of his wallet when he was sitting on the couch the night before, watching TV. It had slipped between the cushions, and he had completely forgotten about sitting there. Daniel fell to his knees, holding the money in his shaking hands as the full weight of what he had done crashed down on him. He had sent his innocent, pregnant wife to jail. He had accused the love of his life of being a thief. He had chosen to believe his manipulative mother over the woman who had never given him a single reason to doubt her. And now, while Catherine was giving birth to their daughter in a hospital room, being treated like a criminal, Daniel was alone in their house, holding the money that had destroyed everything. The phone rang. It was the hospital. "Mr. Rodriguez, this is Dr. Williams from City General Hospital. I'm calling to let you know that your wife has given birth to a healthy baby girl. Both mother and child are doing well, but..." "But what?" Daniel whispered. "Sir, your wife is asking that you not be allowed in the room. She doesn't want to see you right now. I'm sorry." Daniel dropped the phone and fell to the floor, sobbing harder than he had ever cried in his life. He had destroyed everything. His marriage, his family, his daughter's birth, all for $100 that had been sitting in his own couch the entire time. But the worst part was yet to come, because tomorrow Daniel would have to face the consequences of his terrible mistake, and he would learn that some things, once broken, can never be fully repaired. The question was, would Catherine ever be able to forgive him? And would their newborn daughter ever know her father? As Daniel sat alone in his house, holding the money that had cost him everything, he realized that his real punishment was just beginning. The next morning, Daniel woke up on the living room floor, still clutching the $100 bill that had destroyed his life. His eyes were swollen from crying, his throat was raw, and his heart felt like it had been ripped from his chest. He had to fix this. He had to make this right. Daniel rushed to get dressed and drove to the police station as fast as he could. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the steering wheel. "I need to drop the charges against my wife," he told the desk sergeant, practically shouting in his desperation. "It was all a mistake. I found the money. She didn't steal anything." Sergeant Williams looked at Daniel with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Sir, your wife gave birth last night while in our custody. Do you understand what you've put that woman through?" Daniel's legs nearly gave out. Are they both okay?" "Physically? Yes. But sir, you can't just drop charges like that. The system doesn't work that way. Your wife was arrested, processed, and she spent the night in a holding cell until she went into labor. There's paperwork, legal procedures." "I don't care about procedures," Daniel screamed. "I made a terrible mistake. I need to fix this." "The charges can be dropped, but it will take time. Your wife has already been released to the hospital, but she now has an arrest record. That doesn't just disappear, Mr. Rodriguez." Daniel felt like the world was spinning around him. An arrest record. Catherine, his sweet, innocent Catherine, now had an arrest record because of him. He drove to the hospital next, but when he got to Catherine's room, there was a security guard outside. "I'm sorry, sir," the guard said. "Mrs. Rodriguez has requested that you not be allowed in. She doesn't want to see you." Through the small window in the door, Daniel could see Catherine holding their baby daughter. She looked tired and broken, but she was gently rocking the tiny bundle in her arms, whispering soft words. Daniel pressed his face against the glass, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Catherine," he whispered. "Catherine, please. I'm so sorry. I found the money. I was wrong. Please forgive me." But Catherine couldn't hear him through the glass, and even if she could, she wouldn't look in his direction. A nurse came out of the room and glared at Daniel. "Sir, you need to leave. You're upsetting the mother, and that's not good for her or the baby." "But that's my daughter in there," Daniel pleaded. "That's my wife. I made a mistake, but I can fix this." "The only thing you can do right now is give her space," the nurse said firmly. "What you did to that poor woman, I've been a nurse for 20 years and I've never seen anything so cruel." Daniel stumbled away from the hospital, feeling like his soul had been torn in half. He drove home in a daze, and when he walked through the front door, he saw that Catherine's things were gone. Her clothes, her books, her pictures, everything that made their house a home was missing. On the kitchen table was a handwritten note. "Daniel, I can't even begin to tell you how much you've hurt me. You didn't just accuse me of stealing. You destroyed my trust, my dignity, and my faith in the man I thought I knew. I gave birth to our daughter alone, with a police officer standing outside my door like I was a dangerous criminal. Do you know what that felt like? Do you know what it's like to bring life into this world while being treated like a thief? I've moved in with my sister Rachel for now. I need time to think about what this means for us and for our daughter. The baby's name is Isabel Marie Rodriguez. She's beautiful, Daniel. She looks just like you. But right now, I can't bear the thought of you holding her. Don't try to contact me. When I'm ready to talk, I'll let you know." Catherine Daniel collapsed into a chair and read the letter over and over again. Isabel. Their daughter's name was Isabel. and he hadn't even been there when Catherine chose it. Days turned into weeks. Daniel tried calling Catherine dozens of times, but she never answered. He drove by Rachel's house, but Catherine's car was never there when he came by. It was like she had vanished from his life completely. His auto repair shop started falling apart because Daniel couldn't focus on anything. He made mistakes, forgot appointments, and snapped at customers. Word spread around their small town about what Daniel had done to Catherine, and people started taking their business elsewhere. "I can't believe you did that to Catherine," Mrs. Peterson said when she came to pick up her car. "That sweet girl never hurt a fly, and you had her arrested while she was pregnant? What kind of man are you?" Daniel tried to explain, tried to tell people it was all a mistake, but the damage was done. In a small town, news traveled fast, and Daniel's reputation was destroyed. His mother Patricia tried to defend him, but even she seemed to realize she had made things worse. "Daniel, maybe I was wrong about Catherine," she admitted during one of their phone calls. "Maybe I let my own fears cloud my judgment. I just wanted to protect you, but I think I may have helped destroy your marriage instead." "You think, Mom?" Daniel said bitterly. "Catherine was right about you. You never liked her, and you filled my head with poison until I couldn't see straight." "Don't blame this all on me, Daniel. You made the choice to call the police. You made the choice not to trust your wife." And she was right. In the end, Daniel had made those choices. He had let his pride, his anger, and his mother's influence turn him against the woman who loved him most. 3 weeks after Isabel was born, Daniel finally got a call from Catherine. "We need to talk," she said, her voice cold and distant. "Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone." Daniel's heart raced. This was his chance to fix everything, to apologize properly, to beg for forgiveness. But when he saw Catherine the next day, sitting on a park bench with baby Isabel in her arms, Daniel barely recognized her. She had lost weight, her eyes were hollow, and she looked like she had aged years in just a few weeks. "Catherine," Daniel said softly, approaching slowly like she was a wounded animal that might run away. I look terrible." Catherine finished for him. "I know. That's what happens when your husband destroys your life over $100. Daniel sat down on the other end of the bench, keeping his distance. "Catherine, I am so sorry. I found the money in the couch cushions. It fell out of my wallet when I was watching TV. I was completely wrong about everything." Catherine didn't look at him. She just stared straight ahead, gently rocking Isabel. "Do you know what the worst part was, Daniel? It wasn't being arrested. It wasn't giving birth with a police officer outside my door. It wasn't even spending that night in a jail cell while I was in labor." "Then what was it?" Daniel whispered. Catherine finally turned to look at him, and Daniel saw a pain in her eyes that cut right through his soul. "The worst part was realizing that the man I married, the man I loved with all my heart, didn't know me at all. You thought I was capable of stealing from you, Daniel. After 5 years together, 3 years of marriage, carrying your child for 9 months, you thought I was a thief." "I was scared," Daniel said desperately. "I was stressed about becoming a father, and my mother kept saying things, and when the money was missing, You just what? Decided to destroy our family instead of looking harder for the money? Decided to trust your mother's poisonous words instead of trusting your wife?" Daniel started crying again. "Catherine, please, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you terribly, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work through this. I love you, and I love Isabel more than life itself." Catherine was quiet for a long moment, looking down at their sleeping daughter. "Do you want to hold her?" she asked suddenly. Daniel's heart leaped. "Can I? Really?" Catherine carefully placed Isabel in Daniel's arms, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Daniel felt a moment of pure joy. His daughter was perfect. Tiny fingers, button nose, and she had Catherine's beautiful dark hair. "She's incredible," Daniel whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "She is," Catherine agreed, "and she deserves better than parents who can't trust each other." Daniel looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Catherine took a deep breath. "I mean, I'm leaving, Daniel. I'm moving to California to live with my cousin Maria. I got a job offer at a school there, and I think a fresh start is what Isabel and I need." "No," Daniel said, panic rising in his voice. "No, Catherine, you can't take her away from me. She's my daughter too." "And you should have thought about that before you had me arrested," Catherine said coldly. "I'm not doing this to punish you, Daniel. I'm doing this to protect myself and Isabel. I can't live in this town anymore. Everywhere I go, people look at me like I'm a criminal. My own husband's betrayal has followed me everywhere. But I dropped the charges. I told everyone it was a mistake." "Too little, too late," Catherine said. "The damage is done. My reputation is ruined, my trust is broken, and my heart is shattered. I need to rebuild my life somewhere new." Daniel held Isabel tighter, as if that could somehow keep them both from leaving him. "What about my rights as a father? What about visitation?" "We'll work out something legal," Catherine said. "Maybe when Isabel is older, she can visit you during summer vacations. But Daniel, I need you to understand something very clearly." She stood up and looked down at him with eyes full of pain and determination. "We are never getting back together. What you did to me, what you put me through, that's not something I can forgive or forget. You chose to see me as your enemy instead of your partner. You chose your mother's paranoia over your wife's love. Those are choices you have to live with." "Catherine, please," Daniel begged, still holding Isabel. "Don't do this. Don't take her away from me. I'll do anything to make this right." "There is nothing you can do," Catherine said firmly. "The time for making things right was before you called the police on your pregnant wife. The time for trust was before you accused me of being a thief." She gently took Isabel back from Daniel's arms. "I'll be leaving next week. My lawyer will contact you about visitation arrangements." As Catherine walked away, carrying Daniel's daughter with her, Daniel fell to his knees in the grass and cried like his heart was breaking. Because it was. 6 months later, Daniel sat alone in his empty house, holding a picture of Catherine and Isabel. His auto repair shop had failed and closed down. Most of his friends had turned their backs on him. Even his relationship with his mother was strained beyond repair. He had started going to therapy, trying to understand how he had made such a terrible mistake. Dr. Reynolds, his therapist, had helped him see how his fear, pride, and his mother's manipulation had clouded his judgment. "The question now," Dr. Reynolds had said, "is what are you going to do with this knowledge? How are you going to become the man who deserves his daughter's love?" Daniel had been working on that answer every day since. He got a job at another auto shop, started sending Catherine money every month for Isabel's care, and wrote letters to his daughter even though she was too young to read them. Sometimes, Catherine would send him pictures of Isabel. Her first smile, her sitting up, her taking her first steps. Each picture was a blessing and a torture, showing Daniel everything he was missing because of his own terrible choices. One day, Daniel got a phone call that changed everything. "Daniel?" It was Catherine's voice, but she sounded different, softer maybe. "Catherine, is everything okay? Is Isabel all right?" "She's fine," Catherine said. "She's wonderful, actually. She's walking now, and she says Dada sometimes, even though I'm not there," Daniel finished sadly. "Daniel, I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about what happened, about Isabel growing up without her father." Daniel's heart started racing. And I think maybe it's time for you to visit. Not to get back together," she added quickly. "That's never going to happen. But Isabel deserves to know her father, and despite everything, I can see that you're trying to change." Daniel started crying with relief. "Really? You'd let me see her?" "Under supervision at first. My cousin Maria would be there, and we'd take it slow. But yes, I think it's time. Catherine, I can't thank you enough. I know I don't deserve this chance. You're right, you don't, Catherine said bluntly. But Isabel deserves to have a father in her life, even if that father made the worst mistake imaginable. 3 weeks later, Daniel flew to California with a heart full of hope and terror. When he knocked on Maria's door and saw Catherine holding 2-year-old Isabel, he felt like he could barely breathe. Isabel looked exactly like Catherine, but with Daniel's eyes. She was curious and beautiful and perfect, and she was his daughter. Isabel, sweetheart, Catherine said gently, this is your daddy. He's come a very long way to see you. Isabel looked at Daniel with those familiar eyes and then hid her face in Catherine's shoulder. It's okay, Daniel said softly. She doesn't know me. I understand. But slowly, over the course of that weekend, Isabel began to warm up to Daniel. She let him read her a story, help feed her lunch, and even push her on the swings at the park. On Daniel's last day there, Isabel walked up to him and held up her arms, wanting to be picked up. When Daniel lifted her into his arms, she looked right into his eyes and said, Dada. Daniel started crying right there in front of everyone, and Isabel reached up with her tiny hand to touch his face. She knows, Catherine said quietly, watching them together. Somehow, she knows you're her father. As Daniel prepared to leave, Catherine walked him to the door. This doesn't change anything between us, she said firmly. I will never forgive you for what you did to me, but Isabel loves you already, and I won't let my pain deprive her of her father. I understand, Daniel said. And Catherine, I want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did to you. Not because I think it will bring you back to me, but because it's the right thing to do. Catherine nodded. The man who had me arrested would never have said that. Maybe you really are changing. As Daniel's plane took off, carrying him back to his lonely life, he held a new picture of Isabel in his hands and made a promise to himself and to his daughter. He would be the father she deserved, even if it meant loving her from far away. He would be the man who honored the love Catherine had given him, even if he had destroyed that love with his own hands. And maybe someday, when Isabel was old enough to understand, he would tell her the story of how her father's pride and fear almost cost him the two most precious things in his life. But for now, Daniel held on to the memory of his daughter saying Dada, and the knowledge that love, even broken love, could still create something beautiful. The $100 that had cost Daniel everything was still in his wallet, but now it served a different purpose. It was a reminder of the price of broken trust, the cost of choosing fear over love, and the long, difficult road to redemption. Some mistakes can be forgiven, some wounds can heal, but some consequences, like the 3,000 miles between a father and his daughter, last forever. Daniel learned that love isn't just about the good times. Real love is about trust, about choosing to believe in your partner even when things look bad. He had failed that test in the worst possible way, and now he would spend the rest of his life proving that he had learned the lesson. As the plane flew through the clouds, Daniel whispered a prayer for Catherine, for Isabel, and for the chance to be a better man than the one who had destroyed his family over $100 that was never even stolen in the first place. The story of Daniel and Catherine became a cautionary tale in their small town, a reminder that pride comes before the fall, that trust once broken is nearly impossible to repair, and that sometimes the people we hurt most are the ones who love us best. But it was also a story about redemption, about a father's love for his daughter, and about the possibility that even in our darkest moments, we can choose to become better than we were. Daniel never got his wife back. He never got to live in the same house as his daughter or tuck her in at night. But he got something else, the chance to love them both in a way that honored what he had destroyed, and the opportunity to make sure that Isabel grew up knowing that her father would move heaven and earth to be worthy of her love. And sometimes, that has to be enough. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Stories like these remind us all to cherish the trust of those we love.